I want us to keep doing this show until that house is resold again in 3 to 5 years, and we'll see what it sells for. And then we'll go back to this clip and we'll talk about how, like, wow, it doubled in the last 5 years or whatever it is. It's funny.
You're listening to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast with your hosts, Paul Stevenson, David Warren, and Greg Campbell. Let's see what's going on in the world of real estate today.
Hello and welcome to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, the go-to source for all things real estate in the vibrant capital city of Canada. I'm your host, Paul Stevenson, and I'm joined as always by my insightful co-host, David Warren, and the seasoned expert, Greg Campbell. Whether you're a seasoned investor, lots of seasons, first-time homebuyer, or simply curious about the dynamic Ottawa real estate market, this podcast is your key to unlocking valuable insights, expert advice, and the latest trends shaping the local property landscape. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
I don't know. I'm really bright. I feel like I'm in some type of template.
Two-Face. You're looking like Two-Face from Batman.
Yeah. The sun is right there in my face. I'll hang out over here. I'm great. Tired. A little tired.
Yeah, Greg, you had a birthday this weekend, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It was Savannah's eighth birthday. She's 8, and we had family and one group of friends over on Saturday, and it was wonderful. We went from about 2 till probably 11 o'clock at night, and yesterday was just a day of rest, day of cleanup. Day of getting some work done, getting prepped for the week.
Mm-hmm.
Because in real estate right now, you have to be prepared as it gets busier. How about yourself?
It's great. I got the pre-echo now of Greg next door, so I can kind of hear what he's saying before he says it.
No,
that's what I'm actually trying to get.
I'm saying. We now have to wear headphones in here, like when we record. It's ridiculous.
I was trying to put my headphones on, but then I realized I have a new preamp for the mic, and that doesn't allow me to then use my headphones in the mic. So whole new process here. But I like your point about needing to be prepared. I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of, I think the market first couple of weeks of January, correct me if I'm wrong. I know, Dave, you were talking about last week being like one of the busier weeks. It seems like it was super busy for like 3 weeks. And then it seems to be quite stagnant, at least from a transaction standpoint, for the last maybe 7 days. So I don't know if that's just like a pre-spring lull or if people are just waiting to see what's happening. I don't know, Greg. I'm interested to hear the numbers today as far as listings and so on to see where things are.
It's one of those funny things, right? When you make a comment like that and then you think, okay, what news came out that can relate to that comment? And the news is that the GDP was up and that the bank's not going to drop rates, right? That happened didn't that come out like last Tuesday? I wonder if the headline like that just made people go like, oh, maybe we'll wait then. I don't know. I think it's just random. I'm sure there's a bunch of people in town that did some crazy business this week. I think it's just affecting you, Paul. Yeah. You had such a killer start to the year.
I have one slow week and all of a sudden the sky's falling.
Like I'm failing. What can I do? I need to be better.
Maybe we'll put you on the spot, Greg, of as we're talking to pull up the solds and conditionals last 7 days.
Yeah, I have it.
I'd be curious to see what the actual numbers.
It's the same, man. Like in the last 7 days, it's almost always the same right now. So new listings 349, back on market there's 28, price decrease 105. That number's been big lately. Price increase 8 listings had a price increase. I don't understand that ever unless they're trying to play in that game. Conditional sale 154, 165 sold. I mean, that's healthy. 95 expired, probably in that new listing category again. 117 canceled. I guarantee a bunch of those were relisted as well. 108 rented. Mm-hmm. And so I mean, it's pretty much the same as it's been the last 3 weeks in Ottawa proper. What did I see in the last week? I actually did get a couple other things done. I've been busy. I've been blessed. I'll say that I've been blessed with some good business lately. I sold a big condo downtown, which was very rare for me. It was just one of those things. Buyer came around, referral, got the condo of their dreams. They had a bunch on their list, didn't have that one on it. I added it. It was the last one that we saw. And he was like, good work, Greg. This is the fucking condo. I love it. Let's buy it. It was like a movie. He's like standing there like this. He's like, smile for the camera, taking pictures of me. He's like, good job. Good job. Anyways, it was fun. And like, I know there's more going on, but then there's a lot of properties that are still stuck.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, when I was saying slower, specifically transactions, like at least, again, this is just for me, which is this very small subsect of the Ottawa real estate market. But I had clients that were putting in offers, just nothing like either outbid, or I had one client that waited 2 days to submit their offer. And then when they submitted, another offer obviously came in. So there's that sort of thing happening. So there are still transactions. It's seemingly happening, just not for my clients. They're they're missing. They're shooting. They're missing.
That's going to happen more, I think. And, you know, I spoke with a new buyer yesterday, and although the property that they were first interested in is it's something that's been on the market for a while. It was heavily overpriced at first, but it's been sitting. But I didn't want to say to them, like, we haven't had a proper sit down yet, but I didn't want to say, he's like, oh, let's book it for Thursday. I'm busy, Monday to Wednesday. I was almost wanted to be like, well, things are picking up. Maybe we should go today or tomorrow, just based on your point, because that's going to start happening again. Everyone got a little complacent over the last 4 or 5 months, and now things are starting to pick up again. So I definitely think there will be some people lacking a sense of urgency that they'll switch into gear after that.
Greg, we talked about this last week, but there was that property in Toronto that had, I think, 85 offers on it. Wasn't it something crazy like that?
Yeah. We need to get that guy on the show. We need to get that guy.
Yeah.
Be a good conversation. Yeah. So 85 offers, 300 plus showings. They listed it was in Mississauga. They listed it at $799. They estimated it to be valued at around $910, between $910 and $930, the agent had suggested. They listed it ridiculously low because they knew they'd get activity, and then it sold for $1 million. And apparently the offer that won, as we've said in the past, they were way above any of the other offers. He said the majority of the offers, I believe, were in and around the 800,000 mark.
I've been in that scenario twice with my last two houses, where I just purposely went in knowingly over what I thought it was worth because I wanted to win the multiple offer situation. And I mean, you kind of build that in, like if you're expecting to live there for the next 10 years or 15 years or however long, then the extra 5 or 10 grand to get you in the door doesn't really matter, right? At the end of the day, like if it's an extra $50 or $100 a month, but you're getting the home you love, to me, it was worth it. When you're talking about, you're like, well, let's go in at 335. This was at the time, it's like, or we could go in at 340 and just guarantee ourselves the victory here, So sometimes it doesn't take much. Like what you think you should offer, if you add a little bit to that, even if it's like 1% or 2%, like it can make the difference,
I think it's important, like on those discussions, like I've been on that side of it of offering, where it's like, what point are you okay with losing the house?
Yeah.
Like, is that like, there's obviously what you qualify for, and that, can be your limit, obviously, but it's also like in a lot of those cases of like, what are you comfortable with? The 85 offers on that property and all being around the list price are kind of surprising, to be honest.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm looking at it again here, actually. So people understand this. This is a townhome in Mississauga that looks okay. It's not new. It was built in the early 90s, I believe, or the 80s. Actually, it was listed at 750,000, sold for $1 million. That's crazy.
What would it be in Ottawa, Greg, looking at the property itself? We can't see it. So
I honestly, like,
your face says it all.
550.
550. Yeah.
And that's not even in Toronto, that's in Mississauga.
It's in Mississauga.
Yeah.
Oh, Mississauga is wild. I don't know when you guys were last in Toronto, but like I remember actually driving when we were in Vaughan last year for the conference, the Vision conference. I was driving with Sandra and I was like, oh wow, like we were looking downtown. I'm like, what? I'm like, where's the CN Tower? Usually you can see it really because she hadn't been to Toronto. So I'm like, usually you can see it from here on the highway. And then I realized we were actually looking at Mississauga. We weren't even looking at downtown Toronto. That was like to the left. But Mississauga had so many condos and high rises and buildings. I was like, oh shit, I thought that was DT, but no, that was Mississauga. So yeah, it's pretty wild how much they've developed that area.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm hearing more stuff about Toronto. I've talked to a couple agents out there. it's hitting some big numbers again, which is just, I don't know, it's funny. Condos, not so much, but the homes, like the townhomes and the singles are hitting some big
Speaking
numbers.
of big numbers, that house at Dow's Lake finally sold
You
for
bring
$5
that
million.
up. Yeah, that's a good story. So I don't know if anyone, I mean, I think most people in the city that drive around the city have probably seen this. Old Sunset Boulevard, which is just by Dow's Lake, off of the Parkway there, off of Queen Elizabeth. So it's a beautiful home that was redone. I'm going to bring it up here. It was redone in, I believe, 2020. They paid, here we go. 2022. No, that's when it was listed. Okay. Anyways, I don't have that exact information here, but what I have,
it's only 4 years old, 5 years
Only
old.
4
Like,
years
it's
old.
very new. Yeah.
So in 2021, it was listed originally at 8 million.
Yeah.
Now this is a monster home, but it's a 3-bedroom home, right? First of all,
Mhm.
It also
Right
took
on the
them
canal.
4 years to build it.
yeah. So it's a beauty, but 8 million. So 8 million canceled. This is in 2022. Relisted at 7 million. Expired. New listing 2023, 6,750,000. Price reduction in July, 5,950,000. Canceled, conditionally sold for 5 million. So it took 3 years to sell and a $3 million price reduction to sell it.
Mhm.
Now I don't know if they paid to build it, but I'm sure that they made out okay, I'll assume. If not, that's a good lesson in overvalue in Ottawa when it comes to extreme luxury.
Yeah.
I think the big, I mean, I pass by it all the time because I live right near there. It's nice on the outside. Like, it's got a great view. I've seen the videos and tours of it, and being a 3-bedroom, I think was their big fault when they built it, and there's no yard to it. So I think they probably lost pretty significantly. I've only seen activity in there once since it's been built. I don't think they use it very much, but for people like looking at that price tag of 5 million, for the person purchasing it at that price point, you're putting typically around 50% down payment on that property. Typically it's a sliding scale. You're good at 20% down around the 1.5 million mark. And then they look for 50% for every dollar over and above that. So on something like that, somebody's having to put 2 to 2.5 million as a down payment, which is also
I
crazy
want
to
us,
think
I want
about.
us to keep doing this show until that house is resold again in 3 to 5 years, and we'll see what it sells for. And then we'll go back to this clip and we'll talk about how, like, wow, it doubled in the last 5 years or whatever it is.
That's funny.
The other thing, speaking of expensive homes and buyers, the government extended the foreign buyers property purchase ban. So they basically extended the ban on foreign nationals purchasing individual properties in Canada. It's been extended for 2 years, which, to be honest, in a country with massive supply issues, isn't that crazy to imagine. Like, it kind of makes sense. I would say realistically, most, I would guess now, that money is still coming into Canada. It's just being funneled through children or, children who have become permanent residents, or however, the money is still coming into Canada, just in a roundabout way, right? It's not Greg Campbell from wherever buying a home in Vancouver 100% cash. It's Greg Campbell sending, $500,000 to his son who lives in Vancouver, who's then buying a home with 50% down payment, or 70%, 30% down payment, whatever that looks like. So I think it's good at a high level to, slow in some cases we do have a lack of supply, as I mentioned. So having a bunch of people that aren't Canadian citizens being able to buy property is obviously limits the available properties for Canadian citizens. So I think it is good, but I think it's, the money's still going to get here, just in a different way. That's kind of my opinion.
I think it's extended to 2027 officially. With
It was supposed to go till next year, and then they're extending it another 2 years, I believe, is what's happened.
One interesting, talking about the, foreign buyer ban or non-resident tax, things like that, because Ontario has that as well. If you're not, they have a non-resident 25% tax on property anyways already. But I had a client that purchased in Halifax, and I found out, and he only found out, luckily, the realtor never advised him of it. His son going to university there, he was buying a condo for his son to live in while going to school there. Had the purchase agreement originally in just his name, and found out from his accountant before waiving conditions, luckily, that they have a non-resident tax for the city of Halifax, where if you don't live in Halifax and you're not residing in the property, that they charge 5% of the price as a non-resident of Halifax tax. Obviously, the son being living in it, we added him to the purchase agreement and adding him on the mortgage so that won't come into effect. But I thought that was interesting, and I read up on a little bit more, and it's because they have a rental supply shortage. And so they wanted it, and housing shortage in Halifax. And so they wanted to implement this, that people from other provinces and other cities aren't just, if they want to invest in the city, that's fine, but you're going to have to pay that 5% tax on the property, which I thought was an interesting way of going about it to deal with their own local supply issues. Well, there was an article over the weekend in the Ottawa Citizen talking about the overhauling of Ottawa's zoning bylaws, which will take place over the next few years, which will be the first revision in multiple decades. They don't expect it to be done until end of 2025. And they're looking at revamping the zoning to new areas as they look for developing areas from, everything from, they outline anywhere from Mechanicsville to Manotick even, but looking at intensification, cleaning up the zoning bylaws. So right now you have zonings, classifications, R1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera, all these others. And, R1, AA, R1A, B, et cetera, and making it all these variations, condensing them to make it very clear, and then also increasing the densification zoning bylaws to allow for more units in different areas where maybe it might have been an R1. We're now allowing for 4 units, that sort of thing, to help with densification especially around the main hubs and transit hubs.
Great point. Great summary. We got to touch on rates just because that's, it's always a topic of conversation. The bond rates have been sticky again recently. They're up slightly today, but they certainly aren't where people, I think, expected them to be maybe at this time of year. I think we need to still give it another month or so to see where the cards fall. But we saw, the lowest they were, let's just see, was around 3.1, and now they're back up to 3.5 as of today. So lenders are still kind of holding rates in the low 5s. That's kind of where the ballpark is. And I think it's kind of a wait and see. Everyone's just kind of waiting to see what happens with all these things. But I did see that, I know in Jerome Powell, which I know is US, right, David? They're basically ruling out cuts in March. They think that, again, different climate, but they're saying that the cuts are going to be half of what people expect them to be. So some people were saying, 4 to 6 cuts this year. They're thinking it'll probably be closer to 2 to 4. So it'll be interesting now. We know in Canada, at least, that we have an abundance of renewals coming up. I think, Dave, you talked about that last week. And, those clients that are up for renewal are certainly going to have some challenging conversations this year. I think everyone was really hoping, and we've seen a lot of people, even in the last couple of years, take 1 year, 2 year, 3 year terms, kind of expecting that rates would be dropping this year. And they seem to be a little stickier than originally thought. So, yeah, so we'll definitely, we'll obviously talk about this every week and we'll keep an eye on it, but the bond rates are a really good indicator as to where fixed rates are heading. And as we've seen over the last week, they've been slowly creeping back up again. So it'd be interesting to see how lenders respond. What are your thoughts on that, David? I'm gonna prompt you to have to answer.
They increased quite a bit. I think 15 basis points on Friday alone. The Canadian market isn't doing well, but unfortunately, our neighbors to the south are doing their economy is very strong, which is causing, for them to have such strong employment numbers come out that are surprising the market and expectations that's pushing up the 10-year Treasury bill, which pushes up the 5-year Government of Canada bond. And so last Friday, the payroll numbers came out and were dramatically higher than expectation. But the numbers here that non-farming payroll numbers on Friday, the expected number from the market was 180,000 in the US of added jobs. And instead it blew past it at 353,000 jobs added to the US economy. So, almost double what the market was expecting. And then the previous month, so they release numbers and then they will revise them based on when they start getting the actual, kind of narrowed down figures. So their revised November numbers were adjusted from 216,000 added to actually they added 333 in November. So huge gains in employment in the US, which caused their T-bill to skyrocket and thus bringing up the Canadian bonds. So we're, as much as we are not seeing growth in Canada, we've been at negative and zero, and from a GDP perspective, and our employment numbers we've been losing full-time positions. The US has been extremely strong, and so that's causing our rates to be elevated. So it'll be interesting to see over the next few months what happens with our employment numbers and the US is if they continue on their roller coaster ride up, and ours, if we maintain being, at a job loss and no growth in the economy, it'll be interesting to see how the Bank of Canada deals with that, because they can't have too much of a separation between the US and Canada on our policy rates, because that really affects our currency. So I think the next few months leading into that kind of June, July timeframe that a lot of economists were expecting the rate, Bank of Canada to start decreasing, that, what starts to come of the US will be a huge impact to what happens in Canada, and it continues to. So we'll hopefully, any strong numbers for the economy are not good for mortgage rates. You really, if you're wanting mortgage rates to go down, you want terrible economic numbers. That's good for the mortgage economy or mortgage rates perspective. So
yeah, and I think the US, their election is this year, is it not? Like fall of this year? I'm pretty sure the presidential election is this fall. So that is 100% going to play into all these conversations. Our election is next year for sure, if not sooner. So there's a lot of moving parts across the board in both countries, which are going to have massive influence over these. They shouldn't, but they do, obviously. Just the policies that are proposed and changes that are happening and so on. So it's going to be a big buckle up. Get your helmets on. It'll be an interesting 12 to 18 months coming up. So we'll see where everything lands, but we're here for it, guys.
We're here. We show up. We're ready.
Sometimes
we sometimes forget what
we
we're
show
saying.
up. I don't know that we're ever ready.
Today we're more listening than talking. Hey, we're listeners. We have our ears open. We're laughing. Live, laugh, love.
That's true. Wow. Yes. All right. Are we getting into the mood boost? It's early, but I think we might have to.
No, we need to
save ourselves.
We should have been into them 7 minutes ago.
Yeah.
There's a couple good tidbits there. Okay, let's see here. I got 3. Number 1, I lost my job at the bank on my first day. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her over. Figured she'd like that. Number 2, concert season coming up, right? What concert costs just 45 cents? 50 Cent featuring Nickelback. And my personal favorite, number 3. Today, my son's asked, "Can I have a bookmark?" I burst into tears. 11 years and he still doesn't know my name is Brian.
Can I have a book, Mark? You know what? I would love to see a comedian just go up and do that for 15 minutes. Just do jokes like that for 15 minutes, nothing else. And not tell anyone. And a comedian that's known. Go up and just everyone thinks there's this crazy routine. All he does is jokes like that for the whole fucking set.
I remember seeing it wasn't a Comedy Central, a Just for Laughs video of, he's a comedian that's just very sporadic and he looks really crazy, but it was just one sentence punchlines, not dad jokes, just one line punch. And it was amazing. His whole act. It was 20 minutes of just those one after another. Was
it an older comedian, older video from a while ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably Mitch Hedberg. He was he had glasses. like long, greasy hair kind of. And he'd always say jokes like, oh, I went to the grocery store and I bought 6 apples. And the cashier asked me, do I want a bag? I said, no, I juggle. And then just went on to another joke. Like just moved on to another joke, like over and over and over.
I just brought him up. Yes, 100%. That's exactly who it is. He's crazy and hilarious.
Yeah. He's passed away, unfortunately. But great comedian, legend. Yes. Well, gentlemen, that was a fun show. Interesting. I think we'll remember this forever.
Was it? Yeah. Are we canceled? Is anyone listening? Oh, by the way, speaking of listeners, we do have people do listen to this show. I got a call the other day from someone interested in off-market properties. So he got referred to the show based on one of our listeners telling him, like, listen, there's this show and this guy, he may have it. So I got this big long email saying, like, we're only looking for off-market properties right now. One
thing that I just remembered is that the real estate magazine featured us, which is kind of hilarious.
Oh yeah.
We didn't even know.
Yeah.
We probably should have had that at the beginning of the show where people have now tuned out, but
we did. It
was like the National Real Estate Investor Group, or I don't know.
REIC. Hold on. We're not
somebody
done.
featured us and we didn't pay for it. We didn't ask for it. We didn't know.
It's the Real Estate Institute of Canada. They have featured us in their latest edition of Exchange Magazine as one of their top Canadian real estate related podcast picks for 23-24.
Yeah.
Right next to Rob Carrick from the Globe and Mail. Which is hilarious that we'd be like next to like a major publication.
We're in great company. We are a major publication,
David. Let me see. Okay, so the other ones. So yeah, Real Time Podcast, the Canadian Real Estate Association podcast is in there. Stress Test with Rob Carrick and Roma. Not sure how to pronounce that, which is funny for me because I'm usually very good in linguistics. Ready to Real Estate, Toronto Regional Real Estate Board podcast with Jason Mercer. From the Frontlines, Institute of Real Estate Management. And then the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast. The Re-Education Experience, a Modern Realtor's Playbook, Darren Lange. And then the Tom Story Show. Tom Story is the only one that I know. There's a few in here that I feel should be recognized, but some of these other ones I don't know.
Somehow we made the cut. I don't understand it.
Somehow we're in there.
We'll take it.
It's an honor.
Guys, we're a top podcast in Canada. What do you want us to say? I mean, this is just we've been recognized, okay?
We've been recognized. I don't
speaking of that, vote for us on Faces.
For what reason I don't know, but we've been recognized.
Is that Faces thing still going on? Vote for us on that. I think we're.
Yeah, I don't know when the voting ends. It's got to be this week. But Steven said if we win, I should just go up and start doing mood boosts. Just don't say a word. Just don't even say thank you. Just start telling jokes for like a minute and then step down.
Yeah, I think this is the episode where we get that one listener who tunes in based on referral. Like, you should check out these guys, and he goes, "There's absolutely no value in this show."
Yeah, these guys are useless.
You know what? Sometimes the shows we think are the worst are the best. So they're getting us on a Monday morning,
Yeah. All right, guys, let's head into the week with a big hurrah! Let's go.
Here we are. Every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., you can listen to us embarrass ourselves talking about real estate. We are actually professionals. We do this for a living. And we thank you for listening this long, especially if you stayed after the mood boost. You're welcome. And thank you. All of the greetings and gratitude. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe because we'd really like that.